started with this example right here, example number 9 about compound interest. We know that we are starting with the amount of $2,000. I'm going to underline that. That's important. That's the money that we have at the beginning. We call that money, if you recall, the principal. And she's investing that in an account and leaving it there for 10 years. 10 years is also important, is giving us the amount of time. So let's underline that as well. Assuming that the interest is compounded annually, so once a year, we receive some interest on our principal of 2,000. What should the interest rate be to the nearest 10%, a tenth of a percent? So we have some rounding to do. In order for us to receive 3,750 at the end. This amount, I'm going to underline this one as well, the total amount of money that we receive at the end of the 10 years, and we refer to that as our amount. Okay. We know that we're working with a compound interest, so let's recall the formula that we had for compound interest. It told us the total amount of money that we are going to make comes from the initial amount of money that we had, or the principal, in this case the $2,000, multiplied by 1 plus the interest rate, or R, which in this case is missing, to the power of t, or time, or for how long or for how many years we're gonna leave it there. We have to make sure that we know this formula pretty well, and there shouldn't be any part of it that's a bit confusing to us, so let's just make sure that we are extra comfortable with it before we plug in our values. I know what the amount is. The amount that I would like to have after 10 years is 3,750. I also know my principal. It was 2,000. 1 stays 1. R, or the interest rate, is what I'm looking for, to the power of t, which in this case is 10. So that's the formula that we're working with. Now in part A is asking you to write an equation that will allow you to solve for R. That's the equation. It would be better if you would make R fully isolated, because in the next step you actually have to solve the equation and find the answer. So here's how I prefer to proceed. First of all, I want to make R as isolated as possible. So I'm going to try to remove any other factors, powers, or numbers sitting next to it. The very first thing I want to remove is the 2,000. It's being multiplied to our parentheses, so I'll do the opposite operation, which is to divide by 2,000 on both sides. Let's see what we're going to have. The 3,750 is going to get divided by 2,000. That's going to leave us with the parentheses alone. So 1 plus R to the power of 10. What is the next thing I should remove? I can't really touch this one because it's inside a parentheses, and that parentheses has a power on top. So the next thing for us to remove is the power of 10. How do we remove powers? By doing a root of whatever power we have. We have a power of 10, so I should do a 10th root of both sides. What happens here is that this 10th root and this power of 10 cancel each other out, leaving me with 1 plus R on the right hand side. On the left hand side, I'm not going to simplify anything just yet. I will use a calculator for this later on. So let's just keep it as the 10th root of 3,750 over 2,000. And the very last thing I need to get rid of is the 1. It's being added, so I'll subtract it from both sides, leaving us with the 10th root of 3,750 divided by 2000 minus 1 equals r. This is the formula we're going to use to figure out what r is. From here on, the only thing I need to do is to plug this inside a calculator. So allow me to open the scientific calculator that we have and write that down. Here's how I need to write it down. Not with a square root, but with a radical sign that allows me to enter my own index. Our index is 10. Inside the radical, we have 3,750 divided by 2,000. And to that, I need to subtract 1 whole. That's the answer. And just remember that we like to express interest rate in terms of percentages. So I'm just going to go ahead, put that inside a big parenthesis and multiply it by 100. The interest rate is 6.487 and so on. Let's just remember that we want to round it to the nearest tenth. Nearest tenth means we want only one place after the decimal sign. 6 point and one more digit. The digit is 4, however, I need to judge that based on the digit that comes right after it. Is 48, so I have to round up and write the interest rate as, let's do that here, r equals 6.5. And that's all that we need to do in this example. Hope it helped.